Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of our F1 2021 and my driver career mode here on the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. Today we are headed to probably my least favorite track to drive here in this F1 game, considering how the AI tackled this circuit here, and that is Silverstone for the British GP. This marks the halfway point of this 16 race season, the summer break coming up after today's episode, heading into Belgium in the next one. We have some work to do if we want to be in this championship battle. Daniel Ricciardo has been nearly unstoppable this season, currently at the top of the board by about 5 points over Lando Norris. Bottas just won in the last episode in Austria. He's here in the mix. I'm in the mix still. Verstappen, Hamilton, even Gasly. You can't fully write off yet. There's a lot of drivers that are still within the hunt here for this World Drivers' Championship. And as well, you've been noticing the R&D has been going back and forth. McLaren, we've unfortunately fallen down the order a little bit, down to about 4th, but that's not a huge deal. We can still compete for wins depending on the type of track that we're at, even when we're 4th on the R&D chart. And I feel like this is one of those tracks actually where you could see McLaren, even though we're down a little bit in the R&D, compete for the win and maybe still win and get maybe a double podium hopefully for myself and Daniel Ricciardo. But we know if we want to win this World Drivers' Championship, we need to step up to the bat here and take down Daniel Ricciardo, who has been so strong this season, and he's had more pace than me. Let's face it, every single GP. I haven't been able to outpace Ricciardo in one single GP this season. Will that change today? I have no idea. We're going to find out as we're going to focus towards qualifying here in just a few moments' time. One of the things I've noticed since I've come to McLaren that's really been causing me to struggle is in the first run of these GPs, on the first set of tires, for some reason, I've had this habit, and I don't know how to really solve it at this point, is I've been overheating my rear tires. I've been overheating my front tires as well in the very first run of the GP, first set of tires, and that cost me seconds upon seconds of time. And then the second run, usually we got really good pace, usually equal pace to Daniel Ricciardo. So we need to try and get our car under control in the first run of the GP, and I think we can have a legitimate opportunity to go for a win. As well, we need to sort out our qualifying issues. We've been able to comfortably make Q3 here throughout this season, and we would do that just like this again here in Britain. We get P6 in Q2, advance into Q3, but our problem is when we've come into Q3, we've made mistakes and just haven't been able to put in the lap that we need. So then we start a little bit further down the order compared to a Daniel Ricciardo or anybody competing for the win, and then we're playing catch up basically in the first run as well as overheating the tires. And you can see my attempt here in Q3. The rain was actually falling, but it wasn't enough to affect the track, so we were still on the dry compound tire on the softs, and we went P5 for the time being, but I would fall down to 8th place. I make a second lap trying to improve, and it was right on the fine line. I had a bit of a moment right there on the exit of the S's. We held on to it, but I lost all my time through this final sweeping right-hander, and we would end up going slower this lap, and we would qualify 8th place for the British GP, 9/10 of a second off the pole winner, which just so happens to be our teammate, of course, Daniel Ricciardo, once again on the front row with Lando Norris, Max Verstappen P3. We got some work to do again, and hopefully we can have a strong first run as we head to the grid here in Silverstone.
Great Britain then, one of only 2 countries to have held a Grand Prix in every single year of the Formula One World Championship. And the circuit extends that record further for today's Grand Prix. Straddling the border of Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire, the 18 corners of the Silverstone circuit form the 3.6-mile beating heart of Formula One. It's been reinvented over the years, with Turn 1 now the fast right-hander of Abbey, but the magic of racing is as strong here as it's ever been. Alongside me to discuss all the action today is Anthony Davidson. Thanks for joining us, Ant, and tell me, you were down in the pit lane earlier. How do you think the track conditions are today?
Well, the surface looks clean enough, but I'm a little bit worried about the track temperature. It's pretty cool out there, which could give some teams difficulties when it comes to keeping their tyres in the right operating window. The cars out there that work their tyres hard and really put a lot of energy through them, they'll be the ones that are better off.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Daniel Ricciardo starts from pole position today, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Gasly, Valtteri Bottas, and Tsunoda. Hamilton, the Golden Boy, Giovinazzi, and Charles Leclerc. Sainz, Vettel, George Russell, and Ocon. Joe, Eilert, Nicholas Latifi, and Christian Lundgaard. Stroll and Mick Schumacher. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
Time to roll here on the grid. We've got some work to do, that is no secret. Starting from this 8th position, Antonio Giovinazzi as well as Charles Leclerc there, 9th and 10th just behind us. Hamilton in 7th just in front of us. He got his first podium of the season in the last episode in Austria, as Valtteri Bottas got his first podium and first win of the season as well. Mercedes has found something, but can they carry that over into today's episode? Right now, 5th and 7th on the grid. It's going to be 5 red lights here. Ricciardo, Norris, Verstappen, your top 3. It's lights out and we are underway in the home GP for our McLaren Vodafone team as we head down this stretch, and this is a very short stretch into turn 1 and 2, and the 2 Red Bulls are side by side. Verstappen, Norris, who's going to give? Probably none of them. Gasly up there in the mix as well, and don't even count out Yuki Tsunoda, who's sandwiched in between the 2 Mercedes of Bottas as well as Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen's going to get the upper edge over Lando Norris, moves up into 2nd place over the British driver in his home GP for the British driver, of course, of Lando Norris, and as well of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton here, as you continue to see drivers in the midfield scrap it out. We're right behind this battle between Giovinazzi as well as the 2 Ferraris of Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. Unfortunately, as expected, I didn't have the greatest get off the grid, and unfortunately I was down a few spots here, so I was just in this waiting game now, making sure that these guys in front of us can sort it out. But Giovinazzi, he tries to lunge one up the inside of Charles Leclerc, and thank goodness that didn't result in an accident, as they were very close quarters racing now, as I had to throw a bit of a defensive move on my former teammate and of course Formula 1 hero of Sebastian Vettel there to keep him behind now in the Aston Martin, as you see the 2 Haas drivers of Schumacher and Stroll at the bottom of the grid. Ricciardo already checking out from Verstappen and Norris there, as you see Tsunoda up the inside of Valtteri Bottas here as they actually make contact. Sideways into the grass goes the Japanese driver, and for Tsunoda, that is the 2nd GP in a row where he's had something go wrong in the first 2 laps. Here's another look at it, the onboard. He just kind of washed over into the side of Bottas, and in the last episode in Austria, we saw Tsunoda actually have a retirement due to an engine failure on just the 2nd lap of that GP, I think it was, and now here we are in lap 1. He runs into troubles again, so he was at the back of the grid and had some catching up to do now as we settled in here in 9th place, but DRS was already activated here on lap 3, and we were right behind Antonio Giovinazzi. I knew I didn't have time to waste. I needed to get aggressive. I make a lunge up the inside here into the last couple of corners on Giovinazzi. We're going to be wheel to wheel with the Aston Martin driver, our former car that we drove for the last 2 seasons, but we get ahead of Giovinazzi, move up in 8th place, and then we try to now run down Charles Leclerc and then try to focus on Lewis Hamilton as well. But as you can expect, like I mentioned, the tire overheating issue, I was overheating my tires once again, and it was basically impossible for me to run down anybody from this point on. But as I say that, Leclerc, he's got some form of issue. We nearly run into him. I go wide out of turn 1, but he is holding up everybody from Giovinazzi to his teammate of Sainz, Vettel, the 2 Alpine drivers, and everybody that's coming up on this mess. He would pull over and be out of the GP, but the safety car would actually be called. No one ran into anybody, but because of Leclerc holding up everybody, they threw a safety car. So we would come into the pit lane to put on the hard compound tire, and everybody would pretty much come in up at the front of the grid other than Lando Norris as well as Valtteri Bottas, who would be at the front of the grid for this restart here now. So we were all the way down in 17th place for the restart behind Lewis Hamilton, but I was kind of happy about this because it got me off that first set of tires that I was overheating and couldn't do much with onto the 2nd fresh set now of hard compound tires. So this is my opportunity to maybe make up some ground here, and that safety car obviously completely changed the strategy. We were planning to go about lap 10 to 12 and then put on the medium compound tire and go to the end of the GP, but obviously with the safety car coming out so early, everybody decided to pretty much go on the hard compound tire, except for obviously you can see it still, a lot of drivers have stayed out. There you see Daniel Ricciardo right there, the best of the drivers right now that have pitted. Verstappen, he's got a car between him and Ricciardo. He's got to get on the move because he can't let Ricciardo get too far away, and there's a move right there from Max Verstappen around the Haas as they go into the carousel. Stroll not going to make it easy there on the Dutchman, but Max Verstappen moves forward, and now it's just Ricciardo and him, no one in between. Can he run down Daniel Ricciardo? That's the question. Here I am settling in behind Lewis Hamilton, but there was a bit of a mess going on in front of us. There you can see Schumacher as well as the AlphaTauri and Hamilton. They're all together, and I did not want any part of this. They're going to go side by side into the S's, and here I come actually through. That's Schumacher actually on my left side. We passed him, and now Giovinazzi is going to go through as well, and we somehow make through that whole mess without any issues. Currently 16th, but we know that Valtteri Bottas, we know that Lando Norris, they all have to come into the pit lane here, so we'll gain 2 extra positions from them, and we should be able to beat them. I don't know why they stayed out. Those strategies just aren't going to work for them, and we should be in a top 5 position here now, as we're actually going to get forced off their track there by Christian Lundgaard. A little bit aggressive on my end, but we make it work and somehow don't get damage, and we use the DRS to get past Lewis Hamilton as well. So a 2-for-1 deal right there, and up 2 positions into 13th place, as we would as well be able to pass Callum Ilott, who would bring it into the pit lane a few laps later, as well as we actually got him on the DRS. So it was now up into 5th place after everything had kind of cycled through. Bottas had pitted, he was way behind, but Lando Norris was still out on the track, but he has to pit again. So right now we're about to be in 4th place, but now we have DRS putting pressure on Pierre Gasly here on lap 14 to 26. He goes deep into the corner, leaves the door wide open. I gotta, of course, take the initiative and make the move. We're gonna go around the long way here through the carousel, wheel to wheel, close quarters racing with Pierre Gasly now, as I'm not gonna give it up. I want to, of course, get on the roll here and try to move my way forwards and see if we can run down Verstappen and Ricciardo side by side into Copse as we head through the right-hander. This is how you get through Copse without wrecking each other. Unlike Lewis Hamilton, Pierre Gasly didn't desperately send it in there when it wasn't going to work, and unlike Max Verstappen, I know how to leave room when someone sends it in there. So we were able to make it through without having an accident with Pierre Gasly, and then we would just be able to pass him right back here on the DRS straight away. And I was hoping that we would be able to check out drive away, because now we're in a net P3 once Lando Norris brings it into the pit lane, and that would happen pretty soon here at the conclusion of lap 15. Norris comes in, we move up into 3rd place, but to my surprise, we actually were not able to pull away from Pierre Gasly. We closed pulled away by about a second, and then the gap actually started coming back towards me. Gasly was closing. You saw right there that Callum Ilott retired from the session due to a mechanical failure as well, but now the laps are winding down. Ricciardo looking like yet another victory. Top step of the podium it's going to be for him. Verstappen second, myself third, but it's going to be a fight between myself and Gasly. It might not be over yet, but a very calm final half of this British GP this would turn into. There was literally nothing going on other than Lando Norris and Valtteri Bottas trying to move their way through the grid, but Bottas was struggling versus Norris, who was actually about to rebound into a top 5 finishing position here. Considering the terrible strategy he had, that was a pretty good effort. I was very surprised though by how calm the final handful or 10 laps of this GP was turning into, and we're going to cut straight through to the final lap of this GP. 0.7 of a second ahead of Pierre Gasly. Lando Norris rebounded to 5th, only 6.7 seconds behind me on this final lap of the GP, but Pierre Gasly would completely catch me off guard. I kind of got caught sleeping on this final lap because I realized as we head into the S's, Pierre Gasly is only a few car lengths behind me, and I know I'm in trouble now going into this DRS zone, especially when I run wide a little bit right there, and the door is wide open for Gasly to go for it. We had a wheel-to-wheel, side-by-side battle earlier. We're going to have one again because I'm not giving up this podium position here as we're going to go side-by-side into the right-hander, wheel-to-wheel. It's so close, I cannot let him get clear. What a pass from us on the outside right there to get back around Gasly. He sends her up the right side, but he's not going to be able to make it happen. We stay ahead. Ricciardo wins the British GP, exactly what we did not need. Verstappen second. We get a 3rd place finish here in Silverstone. I don't even know how to feel because I felt like we drove a great race from where we started. We're actually going to get driver of the day as well, but at the same time, we still lost points. Let's head to the podium and check out the championship standings as well.
Here we are then, a fantastic British Grand Prix, and what a performance it was from our race winners today. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
Well, they played the safety car to absolute perfection. There are so many factors to worry about once the race is neutralised. I mean, do you pit for fresh rubber? Do you have the space behind you? How much fuel can you save? If you answer all of those questions correctly, you'll have a good chance. And that's exactly what happened today.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure, and no doubt they'll be celebrating tonight.
there you see the podium celebrations. And like I said, I don't really know how to feel about this one because we had a nice rebound from where we started and whatnot. But unfortunately, we, like I said, lost points. And there you see it right there with 32 points back from Ricciardo. Lando Norris 19 now. And a rough day for some of these drivers like Bottas and Hamilton who are trying to get back into the mix. So they got some work to do. And we're halfway through the season. So the final 8 races about to be underway after the summer break here, going into the next one at Circuit de Spa in the Belgian GP as well. We will, of course, be signing with McLaren for the final half of the season, so don't you worry about that. We'll try to get a few more upgrades in the car on the way and get ourselves closer to Red Bull, but Red Bull, very strong. McLaren, we're strong. Aston Martin's third on the board, but they really aren't showing that. Mercedes has got some signs of speed as well, and don't count out AlphaTauri either. And going into the Belgian GP, I'm excited, but as well, I'm very well realizing that we must step it up. We're not going to win the title by being outpaced by Daniel Ricciardo in the first half of the season. We have to outpace him throughout this final half of the season. We need to find something, especially in the first run of these races, because you saw in that second run, we really weren't losing time to Daniel. It's all happening in that first run of the race, but we certainly weren't gaining time either. So it's going to be a tough one. I'll see you guys in the next one, though, in the Belgian GP. Thank you for watching, and have yourselves a great day.